Good morning. If you could take a seat, we're going to get started. I'm Lisa McConnell, the captain here at Southwest Station, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today as we remember Kent Hintergardt and Allie Bainbridge Jacobs. Tomorrow marks the 25th anniversary of their tragic deaths. So to begin our ceremony, I'd like to call up Chaplain Rich for the invocation.
Good morning. As we're here to remember, can you hear me? As we're here to remember, honor fallen Deputy Kent Hintergardt and his family, let us pray. Almighty God, whose great power and eternal wisdom embraces the universe, watch over all police officers and law enforcement officers everywhere. Protect them from harm in the performance of their duty to stop crime, robbery, riots, and violence. Help them keep our streets and homes safe day and night. Father God, we put them in your loving care because their duty is dangerous. Grant them strength and courage in their daily assignments. Dear God, protect these brave men and women with your mighty protection. Unite them safely with their families after their duty is ended. We ask this in your mighty name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Rich. And I'd like to introduce Sergeant Fred Colazzo. He will be the MC of the event today so that I don't take up a lot of time kind of gimping up here. So Sergeant Fred Colazzo.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for being here. At 01:33 hours on May 9th, 1993, Deputy Kent Hintergardt answered a dispatch call just like more than 9,000 police officers do across the United States every day. A neighbor at the Sycamore Terrace Apartments in Temecula heard yelling and pounding in the apartment above them and was concerned for the young woman who lived there, 23-year-old Allie Bainbridge Jacobs, and her 6-year-old daughter, Brittany. Deputy Hintergardt arrived and began speaking with the woman, Connie Wade, whose husband called the police at her urging. Connie told Deputy Hintergardt that she was so concerned for Allie and Brittany that she went to the apartment and knocked to check on them. The suspect, Allie's recently ex-boyfriend, opened the door. It was quiet, and all Connie could hear was some muffled crying. When Connie asked about Allie, the suspect told her everything was fine and they had just had an argument, but Connie did not believe them. Deputy Hintergardt requested backup as he spoke to Connie, but then the suspect was seen walking in the common area with his 12-year-old son. Deputy Hintergardt approached and spoke with the suspect, asking him for identification. Connie hid out of sight so the suspect did not see her speaking with police. After a few moments of losing sight of the suspect, After losing sight of the suspect and Deputy Kent Hintergardt, Connie heard a shot ring out and saw the suspect running. Not able to see Deputy Hintergardt, she thought he was chasing the suspect. Deputy Haar entered the apartment complex and Connie flagged him down, telling him shots had been fired and she thought Deputy Hintergardt was in pursuit of the suspect. Running towards Deputy Hintergardt's cruiser, however, Deputy Haar saw that was not the case. He broadcast the words which every one of us working as police officer fear above all others, 1199, shots fired. Officer down. Deputy Hintergardt had been shot by the suspect and was lying on the ground next to his patrol car. A firefighter medic rushed from his apartment and helped Deputy Haar and Connie provide aid to Deputy Hintergardt. As more units rushed to the scene in response and a description was broadcast of the suspect, they feared the ambulance was taking too long, and so they grabbed Deputy Hintergardt into a patrol unit while Deputy Haar and other continued providing CPR all the way to the hospital. But all of their efforts were in vain, as it was too late and our brother, a loving husband, father, and true friend, had died. While other units searched for the suspect, deputies entered the apartment and discovered Allie, a beautiful, loving mother to her daughter Brittany, had been strangled to death by the suspect. A man she tried to escape from had used what he knew would work on her in order to gain access into the apartment for her love for her daughter. Saying that his son just wanted to see Brittany one more time and say goodbye to Allie, she relented because her heart was that big and her belief in goodness was that strong. Allie's daughter hid in the apartment and ran out as soon as she could, looking for help from another neighbor for her mother. But again, it was too late. The suspect kidnapped his son and later released him on the side of the road. Patrol units located the suspect and he committed suicide, ending this tragic day and beginning a lifetime of mourning those who were taken from us way too soon. Ladies and gentlemen, next I introduce to you retired Chief Deputy Scott Collins, who worked with Deputy Hintergardt.
Well, good morning. Nice toasty morning. And thank you, Sergeant Clauso, for correcting the, it's not Chief Deputy, it's retired Chief Deputy, so I'm in the retirement Class A uniform, okay? I want to thank everybody that's coming here. I didn't think it would be this big. This is great. There's a lot of folks that worked with us back when Kent was here on patrol that are here today. I'm not going to call you out by name. I'd probably forget a few. So there's a lot of folks here from different agencies, from the DA's office, from the city, from SAFE, who I'll speak to or about, and it's very heartwarming to me to see that, you know, Kent made that sacrifice, and 25 years later, this many people showed up to recognize that. Talk a little bit about Allie too. But I just want to say thank you for everybody coming here. When we're here at the 20th, I talked to Linda and Kent's daughters, and they hadn't heard a lot of stories about what their dad was like on patrol. They've heard the story 1,000 times about you know, that night when he lost his life, but not so much about, you know, what kind of a cop he was. So I wanted to share a little bit with you. About a year prior to this happening, I was a crime prevention deputy, and this station had, Southwest Station had patrolled all the way up to Romaland at the time. Paris PD still existed, so we had no Paris station. It's a lot different. Half of the deputies here worked county patrol, and about half worked the city, as opposed to today, a large majority of these deputies at this station work the city of Temecula, because it's just grown by leaps and bounds over those years. But Kent worked in the county prior to this. He and I worked the Sun City beat quite a bit, and we'd meet at the at this little office that the Sun City Crime Watch had, and he was a methodical deputy sheriff. He was if he did not lose his life, he would have definitely moved on. He was highly intelligent, and I think he would have fit in very well in detectives. He would come in and meet with me, and we would pour over, he would pour over obscure penal codes to charge people with on whatever type of crime. He'd come in and he'd bounce a case off me, and I've got this, and I'm thinking of charging such and such, and point this, and I'm like, what penal code is that? And we would look it up, and he'd be spot on. He was just that type of a guy, very methodical and very intelligent and very caring. I never saw him at the after shift drinking parties. He always went home to his wife and family, and that's just the kind of guy he was. The city of Murrieta formed up, and they were going to start their own police department, so they asked us just to put one deputy in the city for a year until they could get their department going. And whoever drew the short straw had to go to Murrieta, because it was just call after call back then, because we just weren't staffing it right, because they'd asked us not to. And one day we actually had two of us in the city of Murrieta, and I pulled over a car for rolling a stop sign, and I shortly thereafter found out this thing was cold-plated. It was a Monte Carlo, registered, and it was supposed to be on a Toyota Tacoma license plate, something like that, occupied by two Columbia nationals that kept reaching under the seat, so I was calling for help. and within about 60 seconds I heard Kent kind of going sideways through the intersection trying to get to me as fast as he could and backed me up, and we got these guys in custody. They just sold a kilo of cocaine. And we were able to seize $28,000 of cash for assets forfeiture to fill up the gas tanks in the helicopter for a few weeks. So that was a really good deal. I just wanted to share a little bit of those stories with you about what Kent was like back in those days. I spoke to him on the radio. We had a big operation the night he died. We had a big operation up in the Roma land area and a lot of resources, and I got caught up in that. Spoke to him on the radio about 12 o'clock or midnight on a car-to-car channel, and got woken up at home several hours later that I guess right after that I had gone home and this incident happened. Many folks here, it affected us profoundly. Southwest Station, Temecula PD was very small, very tight as far as the number of deputies, and it affected our families too. So, you know, Kent didn't get to see his two daughters grow up, and I had two daughters, and a few years later they took a trip without me to Washington, D.C. for school, and came back with a photo of them next to Kent's name at the memorial, and it affected them so much that they sought that out and went and got that photo. So, and I share that because I think that type of effect happened to all of the deputies at the station back then. And we were so caught up in the loss of Kent that I don't think we paid as much attention as maybe we should have as to the loss of Allie, the first homicide victim that night. And now, later on in life, I have a much different perspective on domestic violence and its toll on our society. And after that, Safe Alternatives for Everyone, SAFE, formed here in Temecula and covering the entire Southwest County. And they really grew, and I got to know them because as an umbrella, they took in the Police Activities League, and I went as a mentor, teen leadership mentor, and they did just a fantastic job, and they're really flourishing today. And a few years ago, SAFE started I guess you call it a secondhand shop, and it's called Alley's. And so for those of you that don't know, Alley's is at the corner of Winchester and Jefferson, and kind of in the parking lot over where Jack in the Box is. There's a fantastic CrossFit gym there too, but that's beside the point. But so Alley's, I always donate whatever, you know, suits or whatever I need to get rid of over at Alley's and get the tax write-off from them than any other organization, because I really, really believe in the cause. Safe Alternatives for Everyone is out there preventing domestic violence, which is another lesson from this tragedy of losing Kent. So I just wanted to call that out. We sealed up Kent's locker. I don't know what happened to some of the items that were in there, but we're changing things today. I thank Rachel Frost, who couldn't be here, for putting this whole thing together. And I'm not sure who's next. Kevin KOEHLER, you probably have, where's Kevin at? You want to come on up? So I'm sure Kevin will have some great homespun stories of patrol with Kent also, and I thank you very much.
I guess it's a good thing I'm short.
What if you tighten this thing up?
Maybe. Does it work? Yeah, it works.
Good.
Okay, I think you can all hear me, right? All right. Wow. Most of us only knew Kent for a couple of years. Him and I lateraled over here in 1991. Myself and Deputy Gorlicki out here dressed how I was going to come here dressed, but my wife said, no, you're speaking, so you don't get to wear your flip-flop shorts and the t-shirt. So I had to wear my cowboy hat to protect my bald head, which seems like a lot of us out here who rode motors is developing. But Kent, I feel like I've known him a lifetime, even when it was 2 years. So I come here to say good morning, and it just blows my mind that it's been 25 years since I stood in front of now maybe I don't know, 100 people. Back then it was probably like 12,000, and gave a eulogy on my friend here. I just can't believe that much time has passed. But I get reminded all the time about how my body hurts, pretty much day in and day out. But Kent keeps me going. Like I said, we lateraled in 1991, went to the Lake Elsinore station. This facility didn't even exist. As a matter of fact, much of out here didn't even exist. It was just a bunch of rural dirt roads and stop signs and not much of anything. Like I said, Deputy Gorlicki and myself became pretty good pals. A couple months later, another 2 deputies from LA County came rolling in. That was a good friend, Joey Nardone. He's still a good friend to this day. And of course, Kent, who you see in the picture here to your right. We became very close friends, beat partners. We did things off duty, shared each other's families, stories, picnics, lake trips, you name it, we did it. We had a good time together. We're just a bunch of young families trying to get used to our new environment. My wife, Lisa, Joey's wife, Vicky, and of course, Linda were all pregnant at the time when this happened. And once again, sadly, it was only a couple of years. I wish it was longer. Some of you in your attendance obviously were here when that all went down, but a lot of you weren't. So I'll reflect on a few things that I think is part of important part of his legacy. Keep blowing away here. 25 years ago today, today's May 8th, he passed on the 9th. Instead of a Tuesday like it is today, it was a Saturday morning. I had to work swing shift. Kent works graveyard that night. I had to take an impromptu errand with my wife. She was pregnant at the time. We had to go somewhere to take care of that. That's irrelevant. But I'm driving through the city of Moreno Valley, down Alessandro. I come to a light, first position in the #1 lane, stop. That's for you traffic guys. Up to my right, pulls Kent. I didn't know it was Kent because I really wasn't paying attention, because he pulls up and he's rolling down his window, he's yapping. I was thinking it was just typical Moreno Valley crazy. And my wife starts talking to him. And he was real excited about this remote controlled airplane he built. Going on about that. And then he started going on about the lake trip to Paris we had planned on that Wednesday, the 12th. He had a boat and I had some jet skis. We went out there quite a bit with the kids and splashing, had a good time. So he was really excited about that. Point I bring that up, it really wasn't so much me having a conversation with him, is that he had the conversation with my wife. They said goodbye, not really knowing that was really goodbye. She never got to see him again. I knew it. I'd see him later that night. I did. I worked my shift. Did my thing, came out, saw him loading up his car. And as usual, as friends do, we go over and bust each other's chops. Wish ill on each other. Not really. But as I was walking over, I saw him fiddling with something. But my real intent on walking over to him, see, he was sitting in his car, seat belted up, getting ready to go on the radio to go in service, to go out and start protecting the citizens of the city. My true intent to go over there and talk to him was because I wanted to raise his windshield wipers. Because this was Kent's calling card to everybody in the station. He'd like to practical joke this, and I know retired Jim Domino out there, Chief Jim Domino, can attest to this. He fell victim of this many times. As a matter of fact, it didn't matter who you were, what rank you were. It was his calling card, and it was actually kind of irritating, and he knew it, but he did it anyway. But his thing was to raise your wipers on your car so you wouldn't see it, hopefully, and after you got buckled in and started driving out of the station or wherever you're driving, you'd have to unbuckle, get out, and put them down, and once again, that was Kent. So that was my intent. I'm going to raise the wipers on his unit, and he has to have to unbuckle and get out, ha, ha, ha. Well, as I walked over there, on his lap, he kind of motioned to it. He had a Bible on his lap. And I knew he did that on purpose. He'd been trying to get, a couple of times asked me to go to church and whatnot, but I still was pretty standoffish at the time. So I said, I'll see him later, see him tomorrow, see you Wednesday, have a good shift, took off, laughed as I went around his car and raised his wipers on him. He jumps out of his car, puts him down. He says, hey, I'm going to pray for you, bro. And I'm like, yeah, okay, thanks, man. So I took off to my car. I was so excited about getting him back, I forgot to check my car. Really did. See, I worked swings. It was hot like this. And of course, when we got off, it was dark. So I was put up a sunshade. Really didn't see my windshield, through a windshield until I got going. Typical thing, jumped in, turned on, warm up my truck, put my seatbelt on, get everything adjusted, pulled up my windshield, put it in gear, started driving out that parking lot. And lo and behold, here's these two wiper blades like this. And I'm going, I kind of knew something was up because as I was driving towards the gate here in the back, he hadn't left yet. He had plenty of time to leave. So as I'm leaving, guess what's over the PA? Lots of laughter. Lots of laughter at me. I got you again. Yeah, I got his calling card. Well, I went home that night. Two things were on my mind. Nothing having to do with this. The next day was Mother's Day. And the day after that, on the 10th, is my anniversary. Now, I wasn't too stressed out about Mother's Day the following day because my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, was still alive, and she always had this huge thing planned. And that didn't give me an excuse to not have something for my wife, which I did. That wasn't the issue. But I didn't have anything for no plans for my anniversary, and no gift yet. So I figured I'd just think about that while I'm kicking back at Menifee Lakes Country Club, where they always had these Mother's Day brunches, and think about what I was going to do for the anniversary situation. Guess that didn't happen. Here's what happened. I received a call in the middle of the night with this horrible news. You know, I'm half asleep. I screamed no real loud, threw my phone across the room, broke it, sat up and cried. Still half asleep. I didn't even know what was going on. I thought first I wanted to think this was a bad dream, or was it even a joke? Because Kent and joke went hand in hand. It really did. But I realized there's no way anyone would play such a horrible, horrific joke on me. And then the other call started coming in, which I had to answer from downstairs because now the phone upstairs did not work no more. Well, my wife and I, Lisa, immediately left for the Hintergardt home. Lisa had to drive because I was shaking. I couldn't drive. And the other thing that really bothered me is I didn't know what to say. What do I do? What do I say? I met Linda at the door, and I quickly found that no words were needed. Not a one. Our presence, hugs, and tears, they said it all. To this date, Linda, and all my life, facing you, that day was the hardest thing I ever to do. Ever. It was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever experienced. I can't even imagine how you felt, Linda, or anyone out there who else has lost a family member unexpectedly, horrifically, or a tragic experience. And my heart also goes out to those other victims from this unspeakable act of evil that took these folks in this picture to my left away from us, Allison and her kids. We honor them as well this day. Next came the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, and that was provide a eulogy for my friend here in front of thousands of cops who are very highly critical. And I had to hold it together. And again, Linda, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for actually choosing me for that honor, because as you'll hear in a second, it changed me forever. And I was proud to honor your husband back then for you, Linda, as a father to you, both you, Marissa, and your unborn child, dear Kenna, as a son, a brother, a friend, and a beat partner, and ultimately as our hero. See, Kent was one of those guys who really loved life, his family, his wife, daughter, and proved by his actions and words for them. He was so excited when we spent times out at the lake watching you, Marissa, play in the water, looking at you, Linda, pregnant. I can't wait to double that enjoyment with you on the way. However, probably the most endearing thing I ever spoke of at Kent's funeral, his eulogy about 25 years ago, was sharing part of a conversation I had with Linda after we actually found words to say regarding Kent's routine when he came home from work each day and interacted with his little girl, Marissa. On the evening of Kent's death, that next morning when I was there, she said to me she was awakened in the middle of the night by Marissa kicking and screaming in her bed, laughing and giggling, moving about as if someone was tickling her. Linda told me she comforted Marissa and put her right back to sleep, as if nothing had even happened. This seemed strange because Marissa had never done this before, but we did learn later that Marissa's laughter started at the same time Kent was killed. And then Linda told me the first thing Kent did when he got home from work each time was tickle Marissa pink. To me, it appeared Kent paid one more last visit. For those of you who don't know, I took Kent's death really, really hard. I vividly remember being physically held up by my good friend Joey, that's Deputy Nardone then, who was also a pallbearer with me and Deputy Gorlicki, at the church, which was Harvest. After we got out of the limo and waiting for Kent's body to arrive, I remember Joey actually holding me up because I almost couldn't even stand up. And I remember being very mad at this God Kent was trying to get me to know. Why would he allow this? Needless to say, my head was really, really spinning. Just so you know, Kent's legacy changed my life forever. And mind you, I only knew him for 2 short years. Sadly, it took an event like his tragic passing to get my heathen butt to church. Kent's death, the circumstances surrounding his death, hearing another friend of his speak at the service about Kent's new walk with Christ, and lastly hearing the pastor, Greg Laurie at Harvest, take a very no-nonsense approach to telling the attendees at that service about salvation, I decided to open my mind and heart and begin to investigate the Bible and its teachings. 2 months later, I asked the Lord in my heart, and that changed my life forever. See, I learned that Kent's death was the result of an evil act based off our own free will to given to us. What God did was turn his death into a positive by saving me and likely thousands of others who knew him or attended that service. I know we'll all see each other again someday, and if Kent's able to look down upon you too, and you too, Linda, I know he's proud. And he's also thankful, where are you, Mike, for stepping into this life. You didn't take his place, but you sure continued on, and I appreciate you, man. Mother's Day and my anniversary will be changed forever. So, I will never forget Kent. Since Finding the Truth, I celebrate Kent's life now every year, and the life that he actually led to me to. Every time I think of Kent, this guy here to my right, I came across this one verse years ago, John 15:13. Greater love has no more than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. And he did that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Kent's wife, Linda Hintergardt-SOUBRIOUS, and daughters.
I don't even know what to say after that. That was great. Sorry, I can be a crier, so I'll try to keep it together. But first, I just want to thank everybody for coming. It means a lot to us, and I know for me and Marissa and even my mom, just to meet Allie's parents. We've never met them before today. My mom had met, well, Marissa was tiny. We were both really, really tiny. But at the park dedication in '94, I know she said she saw you guys there, but everything was still fairly new and foggy. So it's nice to meet you now, even though it took 25 years. So thank you guys for coming. And we really wanted to take time to remember Allie and her life and just kind of reflect back on that too, because it's very important to us. Sorry. We also want to thank the Sheriff's Department for putting this together. For me and Marissa, we don't have, well, I don't have any memories. Marissa has very, very little memories of Kent, and so this is kind of our way of connecting with him and hearing from his friends and family, and just our way to have that connection with him, to hear stories. I'm like the practical joker. I'm actually pretty annoying too, so that must be where I get it from. So there's a lot of ways that I hear just stories of him how I definitely picked up a lot of good or bad characteristics from him. But also just kind of the direction I've taken with my life as well. I've moved into nursing and take after my mom, but also my dad. Just that realm of public service I feel is very important to give back to the community and just focus on caring for other people. It's something that I've found very important in my life. And it's crazy for somebody that you've never met that you can get so much from something like that. So it's just very important to us to hear from his family and friends and have the department put this all together. So thank you very much for everybody for being here. It's crazy. It's been 25 years, but it's amazing all the things that we've been able to do and people we've been able to meet all through the years, especially Allie's parents. It was very important to us. Just to build that connection and find some good in this horrible tragedy. So thank you so much.
Yes, I'd like to echo the same thoughts. We are so deeply grateful to this station, to the Sheriff's Department, to Captain McConnell, for investigator Rachel Frost. I know she worked so hard to put this event together, and the entire station. This event means the world to us. The fact that you would do this 25 years later is amazing that you would do this. We remember him every day, and we're very grateful that you do as well. Just like everyone said, 25 years, it's such a blur. Although I look in the mirror and I know 25 years has gone by. I have to wear glasses now. Things are so different. We were so young when this all happened, and it was so hard. Just like what Kevin mentioned, the last time I saw Kent was on May 8th, so I think it's very appropriate that this ceremony is on the 8th. At the time, I worked as a surgical trauma intensive care nurse at Loma Linda University Medical Center, and it was an odd day for me. I was able to actually transfer my patient to a lower level of care, and they allowed me to go home early that day, which never ever happened. And so I was actually able to eat dinner with Kent the last day that he was alive, and that was such a treat to me to be able to have that last meal with him and kiss him goodbye, because usually we would kind of pass the babies, Marissa off, and he'd take off and go to work. And so what a gift that was. I had no idea what a gift that was. So I got to say goodbye to him. He left. He was the early car that night, meaning he got here about 10 o'clock. And I went off to sleep, and I know Kevin talked about Marissa waking up in the middle of the night. I had a baby monitor next to me, and it was very odd that she giggled at that time. But I'll never, ever forget getting that knock on the door, and 4 people were at the door, and Under Sheriff Denman, he's become family to me. He was one of the 4, and as soon as I opened the door, I knew that they were there to tell me some bad news about Kent. I pretty much told them. I don't know if it was because I was a trauma nurse, but I asked them if he had been shot, and they said yes, and I asked them if he was alive. They said no. I just remember feeling really numb, and they had to kind of sit me down on the couch, and it just was so unreal, and I couldn't even figure out, I didn't think about who shot him, what happened. I just could only think about how Marissa would never ever know this man that loved her so much. He would have walked through a wall of fire for her. And how this baby that I was carrying would never ever get to meet this man. And my heart was so broken for my kids. That was my main focus. I was very grateful for the time that I had for him, although it was too short, believe me. But I'm so grateful for all that was done to remember Ken through the years. As I remember, though, going through the years and some of even the park dedication, I do remember Allie's parents coming to that, and I also remember actually the day after he was killed, a plant arrived to our house, and I just was stunned that they could even think of me during their deep grief of losing their young, beautiful daughter. how they could even think of us, how they could even put one foot in front of the other. And I just got to speak with Diane for the first time today, and she was telling me she didn't even remember being at the park ceremony because she was still in that fog. You're in such a fog when this happens that you hardly know what's going on around you, and we're just so grateful. Another person that I thought about a lot through the years, besides Brittany, Allie's daughter, was also Jeremy, the perpetrator's son. He was only 13 years old at the time, and he had to be there to hear the gunshot that killed Kent. His father made him get into the car, and he knew that his father told him, "I killed that cop, I shot him." And he said, "Please, Dad, don't kill yourself, please." He knew his dad was going to kill himself. His dad dropped him off on the side of the 15 freeway, and he was at a call box, and so the deputies picked him up to bring him to the station. I've never heard how he's doing, and I know that his life must be so hard, just trying to process that every day. So my heart goes out to him too. I just wish that I could tell him that I don't hate him. I don't even hate his father. I just hate what his father did. I don't hate anyone. I pray for them. And so I also am very thankful too that God allowed me to take something so horrible and help other people, and to be able to get involved with Concerns of Police Survivors and reach out to other families that have gone through this. It's such an honor and privilege to work with those families and be a part of such a great organization. I'm so thankful, and it really just helped me heal as I could help other people too. And then also, just so many people came to us that really didn't, some of them knew Kent and some of them didn't, and they actually reached out and helped our family. I don't even know how to begin to thank them as well. Jeff Stone, he was on the city council here, and he's, throughout the years, has really just been so nice to our family. Ron Roberts was on the council as well, retired CHP, and he really had a heart for our family too. The entire city council, they named a park after Kent. It was so beautiful. The city leaders here, Denny is here. Denny was at our door asking, and he worked with Terry Gilmore, Paradise Chevrolet at the time. What can we do for your family? Can we bring food for the funeral? Can we bring limos for your family to ride in the funeral? And then fundraisers for all 4 of the kids involved, included Marissa and Kenna and Jeremy and Brittany. The community, they were so generous to us that I can't even put it into words how grateful that we are. And then also Kevin Jeffries, past assemblyman, now current Riverside supervisor, who authored the bill to name the Memorial Freeway after Kent through the city of Temecula. So grateful for that. And lastly, the Riverside Sheriff's Department, throughout all the years. Sheriff Byrd, thank you so much for being here. Ruth Denman, you're amazing. You're both like our family to us, and we're so grateful. Throughout the years, there have been ceremonies that honored Kent and honored all of the deputies who have given their lives. And it means so much to all of us to know that he will never be forgotten, and that the other deputies won't either. And so we're so grateful for that too. And also for Chief Deputy Kubel, thank you so much. Last year, he wrote a beautiful email to the station here and started working on really refurbishing the locker and making sure that it was all cleaned out and locked, and just out of respect for Kent. We've all been sending in pictures, and I know Kevin has brought probably a windshield wiper. I don't know what you brought, Kevin. You brought something to put in there, but it's a place though for us, and we'll be able to write stories about Kent because you know, those deputies that are coming in and they're young, they may want to know what kind of man Kent was, and we'll be able to have stories in there that they could look through his locker and read and know more about him and see some pictures. So on behalf of our family, thank you all for being out here today. It means more than words. And thank you so much for all of you that wear the badge and protect all of us. We know that every single one of you are willing to do what Kent did. And I hope that all the citizens that live here realize what you do for the Mary Day. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing. I didn't write anything down, so my thoughts were all scattered, but on behalf of the three of us, we just want to give a huge thanks to, we call him Dad now, but really we adopted him. But our dad, Mike, he's done so much to help us through the years. I mean, we were still pretty tiny when they got married and was on it to help us just grow up and be, yeah, come up here. Just to raise us and do everything to provide for our family. He's always been, he's kept us in line. But always just to be there for us. He's been nothing but supportive of our dad, Kent, and really helping to put everything together through the years and be there at every single event, no matter what. So just a huge thanks to him.
Very proud of you both.
I now introduce to you Allie's mother, Diane Bainbridge.
Thank you, everyone. Better take these off and put these on. It's an honor to be here today. We usually equate a 25-year milestone with a joyful celebration. 25-year wedding anniversary, 25 years on the job. But we're here today for a different reason. It's not joyful, but we are here to remember and celebrate 2 lives that were taken from us. Like the song says, they're gone too soon. And hearing all the fun things about Kent, part of that song, born to amuse, to inspire, to delight. Here one day, gone one night. Allie was also a jokester. We have on her stone at Temecula Cemetery, Allie could always make me laugh, and she could. I wish my husband Bud and I had known or had even met Kent, but we never had the opportunity. If I could talk to him now, I would say many things, but among them, thank you for trying to help my daughter Allie. Thank you for trying to protect my daughter and our 6-year-old granddaughter that night. Thank you for being a caring, strong, dedicated young man who wanted to help his community and the people and families that live here. I will never get the opportunity to thank Kent, but I have thanked him countless times over these 25 years. So often, our lives are defined by the choices we make. My precious, caring daughter allowed her murderer to persuade her to let him in, saying that his young son wanted to see her one last time. She cared for this young 12-year-old. They had a bond. She was trying to help him understand the breakup she had with his father. She was a loving young woman, but letting them into the apartment that night was the wrong choice. She thought she was doing good, but it cost her her life. I was asked to tell our story of what happened that day, and as you all have heard, it was Mother's Day, and the plan for us was for our daughter and little granddaughter to come over to our house and have our celebration together over dinner. I was excited about it and looking forward to it. We were having our coffee and reading the Sunday paper that Sunday morning at about 7 a.m. when the telephone rang. And it was odd for that hour of the morning. on a weekend. It was a close friend of ours asking me if I had spoken with our daughter Allie. I told her no, but we'd be seeing her later to celebrate Mother's Day. My friend felt I should check on my daughter. She wanted me to call her, make sure she was okay. This disturbed me, and of course I asked her why. My friend told me that a friend of hers had been made aware of an APB. You all know what that means. It was put out on the name of a man who our daughter had dated. She had broken that relationship some time ago. As a matter of fact, she told us that she had a restraining order against him. We were never happy about this relationship. He was quite a bit older than our daughter. She was almost 24. He was in his late 30s. So we were very much relieved to hear that she had finally stopped seeing him. So at my friend's insistence, I called my daughter. No answer. I waited and then called again. No answer. I kept calling. My wonderful husband Bud, Allie's stepdad, said he would go over to her apartment and find out what was going on. Something was probably wrong with her phone. I waited and waited. Then no word from Bud. He wasn't answering his phone now. Allison wasn't answering her phone. I was getting a very sick feeling in my stomach. And then I heard the garage door go up, and I ran to the garage to find out how she was. I could see by his face that something wasn't right. He kept trying to get me back into the house, and I kept demanding to know how she was, saying, where was she? And that's when he said the words I will never ever forget. Honey, she's gone. He killed her. I couldn't take it in. I just kept screaming no over and over. I know I went into shock. I thought it had to be a big mistake, and that if I could just get over to that apartment, I'd see her there. After all, it was Mother's Day, and we were going to celebrate together. The rest of the day was a blur, as Linda has mentioned. As word spread, family and friends came over. Phone calls had to be made to the family on the East Coast. But what had happened? Where was the man that killed our daughter? Where was our little 6-year-old granddaughter, Brittany? Gradually, information came to us. You see, what I didn't know at that time was that our daughter was not the only victim that Mother's Day. Bits and pieces of information came to us from law enforcement over a period of time. They were doing their best, but they were still reeling from their loss of Kent and trying to do what they could for his beautiful young family. I found out that the man who took these 2 young lives killed himself outside in a deserted area of Lake Elsinore. I found out too that our little granddaughter, only 6 years old at the time, was safe and with the police. You see, she was the one that found her mother's body. She had been in her bedroom hiding. She bravely went out into the darkness to find someone to help. The man that murdered our daughter had strangled her, and my granddaughter, sometime later, said to me, "Grandma, I knew Mommy needed my breath, but I didn't know how to give it to her." Her little life changed forever that day. But I'm very proud to say that Brittany is a wonderful, strong mother and wife of 3 young children. She and her husband Tavish now live in Florida. We had so many details to figure out, horrible details to have to be handled. Back in 1993, Temecula had a population of about 35,000 people. We didn't have many services. There was no justice center. The Violence Against Women Act didn't come to pass until '94, and both of these help provide needed funds for services that help victims of crime. Also, there was no SAFE, which you've already heard about. I've been a member on the board of directors now for SAFE for 10 years. It's a wonderful organization. So on that Mother's Day, when all I wanted to do was see my daughter, give her one last hug and kiss, we had no one to turn to, no advocate, no one to help us with these details. I had to call the coroner myself and plead with him to let me see our daughter. He did finally let us see her. Over these years, Allison has missed her daughter Brittany growing up from a 6-year-old little girl to a now 31-year-old woman and mother. She's missed Brittany's milestone birthdays, proms, plays, high school and college graduation. And she's missing all the joys of being a grandmother. Allison and Kent have missed life and all its joys. I do encourage people to get involved, to join and volunteer with support groups and organizations, donate time by trying to help others. I believe with all my heart this is what my daughter Allison wants me to do. Keeping up the fight against domestic violence is extremely important to us, and I sincerely hope that hearing our story, Allie's story, brings some perspective and purpose to the important work that you all do every single day. It is such an honor to be here for Bud and I, to be included, and I want to thank each one of you here today for the work you do, for trying to protect us, keep us safe, and for protecting our families. Thank you so much.
Next, I introduce to you the Mayor of Temecula, Mr. Matt Ron.
Well, good morning. You know, it's hard to listen to all of your words this morning. The work that our folks do in law enforcement is an amazing thing. You know, the rest of us go to work in the morning or in our evening shifts, and we go to work not worrying about whether or not we'll come home. It's hard for us to understand how difficult that is for a family to have to deal with on a regular basis, knowing that they're putting their lives at risk to protect our community. It's important that as a city, we not only provide all of the resources and the staffing and the support we can to make sure that not only they can do their job, but they do it as safely and as protected as possible. And so I know the city of Temecula and so many others dedicates a lot of our resources and a lot of our support to make sure that our police officers come home at the end of the day. Temecula is one of the safest cities in the country, but that didn't just happen by accident. And unfortunately, it happened on the backs of some of these horrible tragedies we've heard of today, and the sacrifices that loved ones had made. The organizations that have come about, the laws that have changed, the recognition that our community has now because of this, it's important that we're here today remembering that and commemorating it. It's amazing that after 25 years, we have so many folks here today recognizing the importance of that incident and recognizing how it fundamentally changed our community. I'd like to say that these types of incidents wouldn't happen again, but unfortunately we all know that they do every day. And it's our important sort of responsibility and our job as a city to make sure that we do the most that we can so at the end of the day everybody does go home safe. We really appreciate sharing your stories with us, understanding how difficult this is for everyone, and understanding how important it is, the job that folks continue to do. I wanted to say it's also amazing to see the service and the continued giving, especially by the families and those affected the most. You know, it's important the work that you do to share these stories and to share your desire to make sure that you contribute and make the world a better place. Thank you all very much for coming out here today, and thank you for remembering this event.
I must say that I did not prepare adequately because I forgot the tissues. So thank you so much to all of our speakers. Thank you for sharing Kent and Allie with us. It truly touched my heart, and I know it touched everyone that is here also. And if you haven't had an opportunity to go to Allie's place, please do. We do not speak the suspect's name today because he has no power or identity here. Instead, we rise up those who matter: Kent, Allie, their children, and their loved ones. Although we are here today to mourn and honor their passing, it is not Kent and Allie's tragedy that we remember. It is their individual characters that we celebrate. And we give thanks to all of those who care and love them. We are here today not as a community that grieves, but as a family that embraces one another. As a family, we mourn all the sadness that breaks each of our hearts from this tragedy. But we also look around and see the good people who have built strength from pain, courage from fear, as we honor these two heroes. Kent, you will never be forgotten. You are one of us, then, now, and always. May God bless each and every one of you, and I thank you for spending the time with us today.